Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. In this series, we look at my scary monster toy collection, which resides in my basement. And it's the basement of horror because the basement is so cluttered that it's a horrible mess. That's why it's the basement of horror. In each episode, I'm going to randomly select a box from this basement and open it up and see what's inside. Today, we're going to look at this box. Ooh, this is a heavy box. Let's see what's in here. Oh my. Let's put this over here. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Oh my goodness. We have carded AHI monsters. There's Dracula. Not that one. Here's Frankenstein. This is the Wolfman. We're already running out of room here. Let's move these over a little bit. Here's the mummy. I like mummies because I'm Egyptian. Here we go. Set them up like that. These are my favorite monster toys. And the AHIs are really the reason I got into monster collecting. As a child, I had all these. I had Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I guess they rocked my world as a little kid. I couldn't believe I had these little universal monsters I could actually play with. And I could make them move, because I had the Aurora models. I had the Aurora model kits, which mostly my dad built them. I didn't build them. And so I would sit there patiently and wait for my dad to build the kits. And then he'd finally finish and present it to me, and immediately I would take the kits and break them off their bases because I wanted to play with them. So my dad would take all this time to carefully build these things, and the first thing I did was break them off the base because you couldn't play with them when they were on a base, and of course I wanted to play with them. So I had little wars with my Aurora model kits fighting each other, and here's these brittle plastic model kits smashing into each other and fighting, and of course pieces would break off and they have sharp edges. Yeah, it was a mess. I'm sure I got cut by the little bits sticking out. And then these came out, and these were made by a company called Azrak Hamway International. And I believe they started in 1973. I think the first ones are 1973. And they continued 74, 75, 76, and I think that was the last year for these. There's all kinds of variations. I mean, I could do an hour video just on AHIs, but the heads and body types and the costumes and the card artwork, just everything kept changing and changing and changing. But as a kid, I wasn't aware of any of that. When I first saw these at the store, I don't know which one I saw first, probably Frankenstein. I recognized that these were like the Aurora model kits. And it wasn't my imagination, because the heads on these things are actually based on the Aurora model kits. They took the Aurora kits and made molds of the heads, and I think they shrank them a little bit, or did they enlarge them? They're about the same size, really. And they made these action figure heads off the Aurora heads. Now, of course, this wasn't authorized. Azrak Hamway International was, it was like a rack toy company. It wasn't the upscale company like Mego. Azrak Hamway, it was, if you've heard of the Remco toy company, Remco is the same company as Azrak Hamway International. Azrak Hamway was the parent company, the actual name of the company, and Remco was like a division of Azrak Hamway. So the more upscale toys they put out under the Remco banner, and the rack toys they put out under AHI. Let's see if we can see the AHI logo on this. I don't know if that's going to show up. See in the corner there? It says AHI. Some people pronounce it AHI. Those people are dumb. I say AHI, and I'm right. But anyway, AHI was sort of a mercenary kind of a company. They did whatever they had to do to make a buck. So Mego had the Mad Monster series, and AHI wanted their own monster series to compete. And AHI actually got the Universal Studios license. So these are licensed, except the Dracula, that's another story. But these are licensed. Mego's monsters were not licensed. So these actually have a nice Universal Studios feeling to them, whereas the Megos did not. AHI thought, well, why reinvent the wheel? We'll just mold them off the Aurora models. And they also took the artwork from the Aurora models. We can take another look at this. You can see there that it's the Aurora Glow Kit artwork. Now, it's not exactly the same. AHI repainted it in a more crude style, but look how the mummy's head is yellow and details are yellow. And then look at the figure. Let's see if it focuses here, hopefully. I don't know. The figure, the head on the figure is yellow as well. Now, the mummy's head was not yellow in the movies. And look at his, I don't know if you can see there, his hands are yellow. His whole body is yellow. Well, the mummy's not yellow, but he is here. That's because the Aurora artwork depicted him as yellow, because when these toys were made in the 70s, the most current version of the Aurora kits were the glow kits. And if I were prepared, I would have a glow kit box to show you right here. As I said in another video, I want this series to be very impromptu. If I were going to do like a documentary, I would have the model kit to show you. I would have the glow kit box. I would have the 60s long box. I would have some loose ones. I don't own any, except for the Creature. I don't own any loose ones anymore. I have to borrow those. But if that's how I would do it if I was going to do like a definitive documentary. This is just pulling stuff out of a box and saying, "Look at this." So that's the style of this series of videos. But the Aurora kits at this time were glow in the dark, and so the artwork had yellow glowing faces. Hope these don't fall over. So if you look at this, for instance, you see he's yellow. There's the Wolfman, but his hands and head are yellow. However, they did not make the figure yellow. I hope that, I can't tell from here whether it's focus or not, so just take a chance and hope that it is. His body's brown. I don't know why they made the mummy yellow and not the other ones. It would have been cool if they were all yellow. That would be neat if all of them had yellow heads. Here's Frankenstein. You can see. Look at that artwork. So that's the same as the Aurora Glow Kit artwork, but it's repainted in a slightly chintzier style. But I love that. You know, if I had my choice of either the James Bama original Aurora artwork paintings or these AHI paintings, I would rather have these AHI paintings. If I could have the original artwork and it was just someone's going to give it to me, I would rather have the goofball artwork from these AHI figures than the James Bama paintings from the 60s. That doesn't look like it's in focus. I'm not sure if it is. You can see he's green. And hope you can see that. And unlike a bunch of BS modern Frankenstein toys, he's dressed in black like Frankenstein should be. I could go on for an hour complaining about the Universal Studios style guide. Sometime in the 90s, Universal Studios, their licensing style guide, decided that Frankenstein wore a green jacket, like he was going golfing or something. And so we've been cursed with green suited Frankenstein toys ever since. And I don't know what buffoon at Universal Studios decided Frankenstein's jacket was green, but boy did they enforce that with an iron fist. I don't know if it was that they enforced it or if just toy companies were too spineless to actually get on the phone or have lunch or whatever and talk to someone in this department and say, Frankenstein's jacket is black. He's a monster. He's gothic. He dresses in black, not green, and we want to make him in black. I mean, are you telling me that if you're going to make an action figure series and pay a licensing fee of tens of thousands of dollars for a character that might sell who knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in units, and you want to make Frankenstein's jacket black, Universal's going to say no and pull the license over that? Well, maybe, because they're idiots, but how about just kind of communicating with them? Did anyone really try in 20 years since the early 90s when this started? It's a real sore spot with me, all these green jacketed Frankensteins, even the sideshow figures, which I think are the definitive set of Universal Monsters toys. These are my favorites, but I think the second would be, as far as the license, would be the sideshow figures from the late 90s, early 2000s. Even that series, like the 12-inch Frankenstein, which is very seriously sculpted and very realistic and authentic and was aimed at adult collectors as well as kids. Even then, the Frankenstein had a green jacket. Even for a company like Sideshow trying to be so authentic and serious, they still were stuck with that green jacket. It was ridiculous. And it wasn't until Mezco, I believe it was, Mezco in recent years made a sort of caricatured Frankenstein toy, but they wanted a black jacket. So they had to get a sample of the actual fabric from an original Frankenstein costume from the Universal films, like an authentic screen-used costume. And it was black, and they showed it to someone at Universal Studios and said, look, it's the original costume, it was black, see? And that's the only way they got permission to make the toy's jacket black. But I applaud them for going the extra mile, for actually caring and not just going along with the stupid green jacket thing. and going to all that trouble to try to get it right and make a black jacket. This is quite an aside from talking about these, but I wish more companies had the guts and cared about what they were doing to go to those lengths to get it right, because I really hate those green jackets on the Frankenstein toys. Really hate that. Okay, what else we got here? Let's see. Here's Dracula. Here's Count Dracula. And he has kind of an orange-red. I don't know if that's going to focus. I'm hoping it focuses on the artwork because it's more, the edges are harder, and then hopefully it'll stay in focus with the toys. That looks kind of blurry. I'm not sure if it's in focus or not. Yeah. How about this one? So you can see he's got red, kind of orange-red skin. His head and his whole body is kind of red. So these are all color-coded. I'll just look at the artwork on the back of this. So obviously based on the James Bama 60s artwork. I love that artwork. So these are all color-coded. Dracula's red, Frankenstein's green, Wolfman's brown, Mummy's yellow. Now, there were different sets of these, different variations. It wasn't organized, like AHI didn't say, and now we will do Series 1, and then we will do Series 2. It was just kind of random. I don't know if there was all these running changes. And in the 90s, I coined some categorizations for these. There's Style A, Style B, which is what these are, and Style C, then jointed wrists and cupped hands. And I based those styles more on the card design than the figures. So these are what I would call Style B. And I used to have over 20 of these carded AHIs, and now I'm down to just a few because I had bills to pay and I had to sell them, and I sold them for some of them for quite a bit. I mean, it got to the point where they're too expensive to keep. I don't even want to say what I got for them. I got some crazy money for some of these. So I used to have a Series A and Series C and some jointed wrists. Never had a cupped hands. But I used to have a bunch of these carded ones like this, a nice shape. And now I'm down just a handful. And I kind of regret selling them, but I had bills to pay. Just like today, I have bills to pay now, but I'm not gonna sell these. These are gonna stay. This is my core set that will stay with me. But let's see here. I actually forgot I had this. This is a Style A Frankenstein. And he looks more realistic. I mean, he looks less doll-like, more like the Aurora kit. As these videos go along, I'm going to have to find a better way to handle the cameras and the focus. He has green hands, and his hands are like this. Instead of these other figures are like that, his hands are like this. So if you bend his arms up, he has that sleepwalking pose that we associate with Frankenstein. It was really Glenn Strange's Frankenstein that I think was the first to do that. And this is based on Karloff's Frankenstein. The face is Boris Karloff. I hope that's in focus. And the backs on these, the Style A version, the backs are different. It's the same artwork, but it fills the entire back of the card instead of being like a little square. It fills the entire back. And this one, although it's, at first glance, it looks like it's in just pristine condition, when you look more closely, you can see that it's actually been resealed. At least, see if you can see this. Like right in here, someone's tried to get into it, and then they resealed it. I don't think the figure's ever been out of the card. It means obviously he's untouched in there, but someone messed with it and tried to get into one side of the bubble, and then I guess changed their mind and glued it back. Let's see, where should we put him? Let's put him back in here. Let's put him over here. Okay. Fish something else out of here. All right, so this is a creature from the Black Lagoon. This is on a reproduction card. That is not a real card, reproduction card. But the figure is the mintiest creature of this type that I've ever seen. This is known as the female version of the creature from the Black Lagoon because it looks like a girl. It has wide hips and has a kind of feminine look. So people generally refer to this as the female creature, the female AHI creature. Did AHI really intend for this to be a female creature? No, of course not. It's supposed to be the creature from the Black Lagoon. But it just, because of the way they made it, it just looks feminine. And the arms and legs are bendy. They're rubber with wires in them. And AHI actually made a whole series of bendy monsters, which I'll show in another video. But I've had 2 of these on sealed cards. Well, no, I had one on a card where bubble had damage, but the toy had never been out of the card. Then I had another one where there was more damage to the bubble, and it did look like, because of paint wear, I could tell the toy had been out of the bubble. But the last one I had, the toy had never been removed from the bubble. And it still didn't look as good as this. This is the best condition female creature I've ever seen. It's just perfect. And these things are really prone to paint wear. I mean, if you look at them the wrong way, the paint comes off. So, even though it's a reproduction card, it's actually better than the 2 more legit carded ones I've owned in my collecting career. So now we come to Mr. Big. This is my baby. This is the male version of the AHI creature from the Black Lagoon. And this is not a reproduction card. This is real. This is a real card. It is sealed. You can't take that toy out of the card. It's sealed in there. Never been opened or messed with in any way. Let's look at the back here. You can see it's got that, the picture is filling the back of the card. I love that artwork. I love the original Aurora model kit artwork by James Bama. I like the glow kit artwork even better, with the fat yellow glowing head and the red lips. And I might like this best of all. And you can see that they made him kind of yellow, like he's glowing. Let's see, get in focus there. He's all yellow. He's sprayed with yellow all over. And that paint comes off. If you move him at all, it just comes right off. Because this plastic is, it's almost like blow molded plastic. It's kind of a waxy plastic. And it doesn't take well to being posed. If you move him, just the paint just flakes off. So when you see loose ones, they're always missing most of their paint. Well, the loose ones are judged by how much paint they're missing. Not whether or not they're missing paint, how much paint they're missing. Are they missing just a little bit, or are they missing most of their paint? And that kind of determines the price of a loose one. So the only way, I mean, there have been a couple of loose examples that seemed like the paint was more or less complete. But generally, the only way to get one with all the paint intact is a carded one. It's never been off the card, like this one. So, when I was a kid, I had all the other AHIs, and the AHI Creature, which was shown on the card. He's pictured on the cards, but he wasn't in the stores. And so week after week, my parents would take me to Kresge, which became Kmart, and I would always go to the action figure aisle, and the first thing I would do is go to the AHI Monsters, and I would say, is there a creature? Is there a creature? Is there a creature? And there never was a creature. So I had all the other ones. I had already gone through the other AHIs. I'd played with them and run them into the ground and broken them, and they'd been thrown away or whatever. I'd already gone through them. I had all 4 of the other ones for months. I'd played with them aggressively. I would take my mummy, bury him in the sandbox, and he'd rise up from the sand. And Frankenstein and Dracula, they would battle, and I played with them so much they just fell apart. And I believe they were already gone, the other characters, by the time I finally found a creature. And I remember my excitement going into a store and, oh my gosh, this was hanging there. Finally, there were peg hooks full of these creatures. And I just had to have one. I was probably crying in the store, and my dad bought one, and I took it home and I opened it up, and immediately the arm broke off. I just bent the arm at the elbow, and it just came right off. And oh my gosh, I was crying and crazy. And my memory of this is that I was in and this memory is not accurate, but my memory is that I was in a bathtub. We had, like something out of a movie, we had a metal tub, like a aluminum tub that I would bathe in. So it was like, so big and aluminum, and I would take baths in this. I'm sure we had a bathtub too, but for some reason I was always bathing in this tub, maybe because I was so little or something. And my memory is that I had the creature in there, and he broke, and I was crying, and my dad went back to the store and bought another one and came back, and I was still in the tub, and immediately I opened him up, and he didn't break, and I started playing with him. Now, that's my memory. Is that what happened? No. Because I have a photo, and maybe I'll superimpose it over this video. I had a photo that appears to be from Christmas of me opening the creature. And I don't know if that's the one that broke or if that's the second one, But if it was a Christmas present, and it's at my grandparents' house, and I'm on my grandmother's lap holding it, and you see the open package next to it. So if that were a Christmas present, then that doesn't make sense. The whole bathtub, aluminum tub story doesn't make sense. So I don't know what the reality is. I think, I know I played with him in this tub, and I know he broke, and obviously my dad got another one. But all the details on the timeline have obviously blurred. I still have that second creature, that childhood creature. He was my favorite toy. I slept with him. Even though he's kind of little, I was little too, and I slept with him. I took him to school. He was in my lunchbox at school. I would walk around with him in my pocket. He was my buddy. I took him everywhere. When my family went to Egypt to visit relatives, he went with me to Egypt. And I remember that the box he was in, we went to my mother's little town in Egypt, which is way out in the desert. And somehow the box, he was like in a lunchbox or something. Somehow it got left in the taxi that drove us there. It's hard for me to believe that taxi, because it's like a 6-hour trip out in the desert to get to this town. But apparently a taxi took us there. And I think this taxi left with my creature in the taxi. And oh my gosh. So here's my family, they made this huge trip around the world, across the desert, to visit this little town. It looked like something out of Raiders of the Lost Ark, this little Egyptian town. And of course their mind is on all this, and my mind is just my creature. And thank goodness the taxi driver realized that I had left this box in his cab, and at some point he turned around and came back and delivered it. So, oh boy, I was very happy. I'm sure I probably hugged my little creature. And I still have him, and I might go get him. Let me see if I've got time here. This is the figure I'm telling you about. This is my childhood AHI Creature. This is the one that my dad bought me, the second one that didn't break. This is the one I took to school. This is the one I slept with. This is the one I took to Egypt. And this is the one I almost lost in the taxi cab. But he was brought back to me. So I've had him ever since. So this is one toy that I will never part with. And you can see how his paint's all gone, because I played with him. His shoulder joint's broken. Like the knob that holds it in place is cracked, and I've got some glue on there, but the glue doesn't really stick to this waxy plastic, so I don't move his arm. He'll be fine as long as I don't move him. He just stays like that, he'll be fine. And he has these really sharp claws. Really sharp claws. That when I was a kid, I would attack other kids with this toy and like scrape them like the creature was attacking them, and try to draw blood on my fellow children, scraping the claws of this figure on their skin and really trying to hurt them, because it's the creature, and that's what he does. So my friends didn't really appreciate that. Also, this toy has a lot to do with my collecting in general, because one day I dug him up out of the basement. When I, as I became an adolescent and got older, I didn't really think about toys for a while. And that's something a lot of collectors experience, I think. They go through this period where they don't care about toys. They're a child, they play with toys, okay. They become teenagers, high school, and you know, they don't think about toys. And somewhere in adulthood, they rediscover the toys. So I was digging around for some reason, digging around with toys in the basement, and I found him. And I said, oh, that's my good old buddy, the Creature from when I was a kid. And I looked at his feet, which it's hard to see now because it's all worn. You can't see it in this video. But the feet have the copyright information and it says Azrak Hamway International. So that's how I knew who made this, Azrak Hamway. And that started me on a journey trying to find out, well, who's Azrak Hamway? And that led to me finding out about these toys, who made them, and all about them. And that's how I knew to go after these. So when I started collecting toys, I said, well, one of my goals was I wanted to get this toy again. Even though I had my childhood one, I wanted to get one in the package like this. So that's one that really, from day one, when I started collecting, that was my big goal, to get this. So it was 1989, and I think it was 1993 when I finally got them. So it took 4 years, but I was very focused on getting that toy, and I finally did. He concerns me because you can tell that his joints look like they're about to pop apart. Yeah, his leg looks like it's going to come off. His waist looks like it's going to pop off. Oh boy. One of these days I'm going to look at him and he's going to be like falling apart inside that bubble. I don't know. Well, he's lasted this long. We'll see. One of these days I think all these bubbles are just going to fall off. They're heat sealed on, so eventually they're going to come off. Can't keep things in stasis forever. The AHI Creature is one of the most sought after action figures in the hobby. So if you collect Mego style action figures, the Creature is one of the rarest and most desirable figures. If you look on eBay, eBay is not the way to sell an AHI Creature, really. If you're going to sell one, if you have a carded one to sell, you really want to go like collector to collector. But generally, they go for about $6,000 to $8,000 in that range. There's one on eBay right now, with a buy it now price of $6,000, I think. But it's got problems. The bubble has been resealed, and it's got condition problems. If it were mint at that price, I'm sure it would be gone. I don't want to be specific, but my last carded female Creature had never been removed from the bubble, at least not when I owned it. I got quite a good price for that when I finally sold it. So $6,000 to $8,000 for a male one that's not a reach at all. That might even be conservative. But this one's not for sale. This one will stay with me, as will this one. So I have a real sentimental attachment to. So I've had this guy since I was a little kid, and I've had this one since 1993, which is that's a long time. 1993, like what, 26 years when this video was being made. It's a long time to own something. The AHIs are my favorite monster toys, and they're the toys that really got me into monster collecting, and one of the reasons I started collecting toys in the first place. Even though I've sold a lot of them, obviously I still have a reasonable collection, And I probably will hang on to these, definitely the Creature, but probably all of these will stay with me. There's a lot more I could say about AHIs and this era of monster toys, but this video is already approaching an hour. It will be an hour if I keep going, and so that's long enough. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you'll watch more episodes of Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror.